Good day, everybody. I am Dr. Flor Marie Emmanuel R. Pilapil-Amante. You may call me Doc Maying. And I will be here to discuss with you for the whole month relating to dairy cattle production. And as a starter, I'm going to discuss with you the status of the dairy industry. And this gets updated every year because of the updates that we get from the National Dairy Authority. And I'm going to first tackle what are the current applications or tools or current setup that we have in dairy cattle operations nationwide. So it's going to be a combination of what's in the past, what's being done at the present, and what's coming in the future. Let's start with housing. So this already tackles or considering animal welfare following the Dairy Cattle Welfare Guidelines and trying to address or inculcate the 5 freedoms of the animal welfare. And in housing, this has been the past scenario and still present scenario to some of the dairy cattle operations nationwide. What we see in this picture is a shed at behind the row of cattle that's eating. And this is the common situation. And many of the dairy cattle are being ranged in the pasture, and they are provided with minimal shelter, such as in the picture behind the cows. And if they're lucky, they get this net to protect them from the heat of the sun while they're eating, especially during, let's say, noontime or in the early afternoon where it's still quite hot. Another variation of that housing is what we call the communal housing. This is a roofed area, basically a larger than the minimal housing that was presented earlier. And in this setup, cows can freely choose where they loaf, where they lie down, where they rest. Okay, you see this in medium to large dairies, but most often, the type of setup being favored by big commercial farms would be the freestall. This is very famous in the US, in Western countries, in Europe as well, because this maximizes the space that's needed for a large commercial setup, which really values efficiency. So in this freestall, it's quite more organized than the communal housing, such that you see cubicles and the cows will rest in an organized or systematic manner such that they will not be in any direction or like in a haphazard manner in their resting. So they're all facing each other, they're all in one line. So we can really maximize the space and it makes the commercial setup very efficient. Now we go to breeding. And in breeding, we have been using heat detection aids in the past and still being used now. So we have variations such as the paint stick, and we also have the water-soluble paint. And these are cheap tools or ways on how to help us in the heat detection. These are accessible nationwide and locally. To aid with that, we have like more commercial tools, such as the Estrotech and the KMAR heat mount device. So this will help detect heat in the dairy cows, such that if there is more red markings or that the gray coat of the estromark got erased. So it connotes that the dairy cow has been mounted for several times. So the animal is very much in heat. So as with KMAR, there's a tube where there's already inside. So when the cow gets mounted several times, this tube gets broken, and so the red paint or red stain spreads out, and you can see the red tube easily even from afar. Okay. And we have a few dairies right now that's also already using this advanced dairy management solutions. This was introduced from Israel. They call it the 2, which could be used as a standalone system that may be utilized for heifers and or milking cows. Or as part of a comprehensive system, they call it the after-milk system, providing a complete fertility monitoring coverage of the cattle farm. Okay, so in this picture, we have the former BAI director, Dr. Ronnie Domingo, pointing to the leg band, okay, of a dairy cow. And look towards the head of the cow. She also has a neck tag. So it can be using a neck tag or a leg band. But the one I'm quite familiar with is with the leg band because that's what we installed in our cows before. So if I'm not mistaken, there are only three commercial dairy farms here in the Philippines who have already embraced this technology. And I believe another one will follow suit by next year. So more of the large farms are also looking into this, but so far we have three. More into this AFIAC system. So so you see that the violet lines or like curved lines, they are the Wi-Fi, and then the red curved lines are the long distance radio frequency network. So coming from the sensors, okay, from the leg bands, it will give it meets signals to the radio frequency network, and then from the sensors it will throw off signals to your gadgets or handheld devices. So this is online and anywhere behavior data collection is happening with accelerator-based sensor and controllable data collection frequency. So anywhere, for as long as the animal is moving, it will transmit data to your respective gadgets or data collection devices. And you only need standard Wi-Fi network connection between the readers and antennas and to your office. And this is a one in all tag combined application for standalone and other stations ID. This will give you like an interface such as this one. Okay, it will give you of the data of the animal, such as the lactation data, the milk production, and also the historical data of the cow in question. And it will be transmitting data all throughout. For as long as the animal is going to your milking parlor, so if she's going there 3 times a day, then you will have data from her 3 times a day available to your devices. More so, it will also give you data such as the behavior of the animal or the activities being done by the dairy cow hours before. Now, it gives off really high signals connoting that it is in heat. Okay. Aside from that, it can also give you data of the behavior days before and even up to 25 days prior to the day zero or the estrus day of the animal. As mentioned earlier, you can also have neck tags. And here in the Philippines, I only know of one farm that is located in Bukidnon that has the neck tags instead. Okay, so what can we expect next? So in the past and still being done, okay, we started with eyeball estimation for the body weight of the animals, right? And we want to really move forward from that. And we want to have more system in obtaining the body condition score. And so we use the weight tape. This is a very simple tool that can help us at least not be complacent with just doing eyeball estimation every time for body weight because that's not accurate. And moreover, like getting a notch higher than just doing getting the body weight. So the weight tape, we can also do body trait type. And this was me about a decade ago when I took the training in Thailand. And the body trait type is a measurement to allow us to understand the difference or the improvement in the conformation or in the appearance of the dairy cow per generation as an improvement to the genetics that we're giving or that we're trying to improve in that particular dairy herd. Okay. Over time, so as we want to automate the dairy operations, Together with the Afimilk system, we can have the walk-through weighing scale. Um, I understand there are only two dairy operations in the Philippines that have used the Afimilk system, so they have this. And so currently we have this, and hopefully more in the future. The animals will be passing through the weighing scale whenever they go to the milking parlor. So if they're being milked 3 times a day because they're a high producer, so they're going to be weighed 3 times. But you can opt to turn it off. So at least you can just get like a weekly data or a daily data, because you also have to buy for the storage. Okay. So you want to limit the data plan, because that will also cost you a lot. And this system will allow the automatic sorting of the animals who are for milking that particular time, that particular day. Okay. And in addition to that, we with the farm I used to work for, we also have automated holding pen where we have the cooling system, the showers, and then the ventilation fans. And we have already set it up as when the cows will go to the holding system in any time of the day, the showers and then the ventilating fans will already open, and they do not open at the same time. So there's a time range when the shower will open and then it will close. And then because they're already very wet, so they have to be dried before they enter the milking parlor. So it's a cycle of about 3 to 5. So that cools down the animals coming from the pasture where they're quite exhausted and they're hot. So it primes them up so that they can have better milk production. Okay, and to herd them inside the milking parlor in a more organized manner. So the FMX system also has the holding pen backing gate, and this will just ensure that there will be no in excess cows or any remaining cows in the holding pen, that every time you will have a batch of milking cows, they will all be filled up. Okay, because you also want to be, again, efficient. You want to lessen the time of milking, so you want to lessen the batches, making sure that each would really, like all the cubicles, the milking cubicles will be filled up every time you have the milking collection batch. And now specifically on the milking parlor or in the milk collection itself. So before we were doing manual milk collection, right? And in some areas, that's still being done. And that's fine for as long as you're doing it properly, like the hygienic way of collecting the milk. And before at the farm, we had a milk bucket system in collecting the milk. That's the picture at the top. And then another farm here in Batangas has a continuous pipeline. So you don't see any buckets at the bottom of or in the milking parlor pit. So they go directly to a pipe, a stainless steel pipe, and it goes to the milk tank directly. So it lessens the contamination as compared to the milk bucket system. Okay, now on the other side, it's just a fancier continuous milk pipeline. And this is currently what we have at the farm where I worked for before. So this is the Afimilk system. It's two sides, so 12 on each side, which is a capacity of 24 cows to be milked per batch. So it makes the milking time a lot faster. Okay. And lastly, to hold the animals inside the milking line, so we can either have the chest plate that is holding their brisket so they will not move forward, or the chest bar, which is a horizontal bar from one end to the other, so that they will remain in place while they are milking. And this is a batch opening style. So even if one is already finished with the milking, she has to wait until like the rest of the cows in her line is finished with the milking before you can release them all. So it will be more organized. Okay. Now we're done with the milking collection itself. So in addition, the FMX system has this inline milk laboratory tool. They call it the AFILAB. And this is a very powerful device because it really measures real time the quality of the milk. And not only that, the physiological status of your cow. So every time the cow gets milk, it will give you updates how she's doing, if she's improving or she's decreasing in body condition, etc. On the milk quality itself, it's giving you off like what's the percent fat, what's the percent protein of your milk, if it has blood, if it has high somatic cell count, which is a higher risk for mastitis. So then it gives you an idea like for the next time you have to milk that cow last so that it will not contaminate the rest of your good milk. And on the cow itself, it will give you data, help you diagnose for metabolic disorders such as ketosis, rumen acidosis, and it will also help you like manage your feeds depending on the metabolic disorders that's being diagnosed through this AFILAB tool. And it will also help you control the lactose and not only control the mastitis. Okay, so um, it gives you the data real time. So as soon as the milk gets into this receptacle and it goes over this tool, then it will send off the data already to your computer. It will give you a short list and it even has a beep, and it can also send you messages through your handheld devices. But that's an additional cost. But at least you have this short list in your computer, and it lessens the contamination again because you don't have to get milk, like open the receptacle and get milk sample from that. And then it also lessens the subjectivity of the diagnosis of the disorders of the cows and the quality of the milk. So just to show you how we try to detect metabolic disorders before and right now. So it started with having a colorimetric chart, and we have a strip, ketosis strip, and we put the milk in the strip, and then we compare the change in color in this color chart. And over time, that improved into having a device that will give us a measurement, at least have a quantitative data and a more objective diagnosis. But again, going back to the AFILAB, it's the high-tech version of how we diagnose metabolic disorders these days. And it's important to do that and to have that early detection. Okay, so that you will have a quick response, and there will be less damage in terms of the cow and also on the milk contamination. And the list will be something like this. It will give you a graph, and you will look at it as a herd, and you can also look at the animal individually in terms of the data. And with this type of data, you can already try to adjust on your feeding so that you will have more animals in the positive energy balance as compared to what you see here, that there's still several in the negative energy balance. And this could also help them, increase the risk for Downer syndrome and also have the other metabolic disorders. Okay, and this will give you this list that will help you be more organized in trying to check the animals, and they can also sort it out for you, and they can direct the animals to the holding pen so that you can at least have a better look at them and do whatever additional tests needed in order to help the animal. Okay. Now, like smooth transition into the sorting or being more organized on who to examine. So in the past, and still in the present, it's still being done. We do manual sorting of our animals. So we have a list, and then we send it to the milker, and then the milker will try to sort it out for us in time for whatever that we need to do to the animals, such as breeding or physical examination. And currently, there are some big dairies who has this automatic sorting, which I already mentioned earlier. So not only do they pass through this gate system because of milking, but as mentioned, it could also be through for AI for breeding. So they automatically directs the animal, let's say to the left if she's for breeding, and to the right if she's for physical examination for whatever suspect disease. Okay, now let's end with the infrastructures. And now we're going to the dairy situation report. And this is provided by the Philippine Statistics Authority on a 2-year basis. Okay. Currently, they're only giving sheets of this dairy situation report, like short files, only 1 to 2 pages. Before we were being given a booklet, let's say about 15 pages. But the last that they released that was a decade ago, and they have only been giving us this short data, which is, I think, fine for as long as they're updated and they're released on time. So from 2022 to 2023, there has been a decline in the volume production. So this means milk production. This is not on the number of heads or population. So we experienced a decline from 2022 to 2023. And it was recorded to be at 6.76 thousand metric tons. And this indicates an annual decline of about 10% from the 7.51 thousand metric tons output in the same period of 2022. Okay, this table now shows us the inventory of animals from the 2 years, 2022 to 2023. And this has been divided according to regions. And this one is in dairy cattle, okay? And we see from this table that the highest number of animals, dairy cattle animals, are in Calabarzon, of about 7,000 animals. Okay, and the second one would be in Northern Mindanao, and that includes Bukidnon. And this gives us a total of about 27,000 heads only. Okay, this is very low compared to the inventory of the other ruminants such as carabao and cattle and goats, which individually amounts to 1 million. Hmm. Okay, now we proceed with the average farm gate price of dairy. To compare the two same periods, we have a decline of about 12% from 42.32 pesos per liter down to 37.42 liters. This map is just to show you the National Dairy Authority dairy zones. And we have several in South Luzon, but the most would be coming from Mindanao. They have departments currently. They have the South Luzon Department, Central Visayas Department, Northern Mindanao Department, and then the Southern Mindanao Department. Between January and March 2025, the PSA recorded a total national milk output of 9.58 million liters, marking an 11% rise compared to the same period last year. So by March 2025, areas supported and monitored by the NDA produced 7.56 million liters of milk sourced from dairy cattle, dairy goats, and carabaos. Of this volume, farms raising dairy cattle and goats under NDA oversight accounted for 71%, or 6.77 million liters of the country's total production. Year-on-year figures also highlight substantial growth in NDA-assisted areas. Cow's milk production grew by 13%, while goat's milk registered an impressive 43% increase. This is the historical data of the volume of milk production NDA-assisted areas from 1995 to March of this present year. And we see that the million liters started from 2.75 and now from last year to 26.05. And hopefully it will still increase up to the end of the year. As of March 2025, the PSA recorded a total of 157,926 heads of dairy animals nationwide. So with NDA-assisted monitored areas, the dairy animal production reached 79,103, covering dairy cattle, goats, and carabaos. So focusing on NDA-assisted dairy cattle and goats, this accounted for 41% of the total, with 31,045 head of cattle and 33,937 goats, amounting to 64,982 heads. Although dairy cattle represent the smallest share in terms of inventory, they contribute the most to overall national milk production. Compared to the same period last year, NDA-assisted and monitored areas recorded a 30% growth in dairy cattle numbers and a 9% rise in dairy goat inventory. So this expansion may be attributed to the NDA's National Herd Buildup Program, which includes the importation of high-yielding dairy breeds, genetic improvement through upgrading and crossbreeding with superior lines, as well as structured breeding strategies such as establishing multiplier farms and promoting artificial insemination. So let me go back to the data presented earlier, where there is a 43% increase in the milk production in dairy goat. So it doesn't mean that the operations had been very, very efficient over the last year, but it could be that there had been an importation, thus there's a huge increase in the population of dairy cattle, goats, and also many may have not been recorded from last year because the dairy goat industry is still in its infant stage. So it's still trying to develop and trying to raise or have more dairy goat farms nationwide. So this is just to, streamline and not to really give you outstanding data that will really surprise you. Okay. Now, this is the historical data of dairy animal inventory in NDA-assisted areas from 1995 to March of this year. And you see, as mentioned earlier, we are only talking about a few thousands of heads of dairy cattle. And it started with about 6,000 and now about 80,000 up to the first quarter of this year. So there's a steady increase. And it's a collective effort of the importations, and these are yearly importations, and also the local herd build-up. We're also using AI extensively. We're using imported semen heavily, and these are provided by the National Dairy Authority. So they also have good programs. That's why it's not really surprising to have a steady increase of the national population over the years. As of March 2025, the average farm gate price of cow's milk in NDA-assisted and monitored areas increased from 42 pesos to 45 pesos per liter compared to the same period last year. So this adjustment is likely linked to rising production costs, including labor, logistics, animal health, and feeds. So the farmers just want to compensate with the high cost that they have been getting or receiving. So that's why they want to sell at a higher cost. Of course, always the end user will shoulder the change in price. In contrast, goat's milk prices remained relatively steady, dipping slightly from 91 pesos to 90 pesos per liter. The modest decline may be attributed to higher production volumes, which helps farmers maintain competitiveness in the market. So this just means that the dairy goat production became a little more efficient from the previous year. Okay, this is the historical data of the farm gate price of raw milk per liter in ND-assisted areas from 1995 to present. So during the time when I was active the dairy cattle industry, because it's where I was working, we were selling the raw milk at 28 to 32 pesos. Yeah, that was about 2020, 2025. So that's for the cow's milk, no? The light green one at the bottom. And it's very good in a sense that it's increasing, so at least the farmers can really recuperate whatever cost that they're receiving in operating the dairy farm. And as we know that everything, like all of the commodities, the prices of the commodities have been rising up over the years. So at least the farmers can really cooperate with the cost that they're also having. Okay. And now we go to the Republic Act 10611, otherwise known as the Food Safety Act of 2013. And this calls for the establishment and strict enforcement of food safety standards to safeguard consumers against unsafe or adulterated food products, including locally produced milk. Ensuring compliance with hygiene, quality, and food safety protocols across the entire dairy supply chain is of utmost importance. So these are the NDA activities relating to this. We have the farm registration, we have the regular audits or inspections of the dairy farms and processing plants, and the issuance of licenses to operate or LTO to the dairy business operators or DBOs. Okay, just to give you a short list of the multinational dairy processors that we have in the country, we have, these are quite famous ones because of course they have commercials and you can see them heavily in the mainstream media and on social media. It doesn't mean that these processors have their own farms, so they get or they buy the raw milk from the dairy cattle farms here and then they process it in their plant, or they buy milk powder abroad and then they process it locally, reconstitute it with milk, and then it's going to come out of their plant as now a Philippine product. So even if you just add in, you just added on Philippine water. So that's it. So that's the reality. Okay. But if they're getting, if they have like, also premium products and they're getting the real raw milk from the dairy farms locally, then that's good. Okay. But for the, the formulated, the powdered milk, that's the scenario. Okay. With the farm I used to work for, so it has its own processing plant, and its plant has the ultra clean extended shelf life pasteurizer. It has the form film seal gable top packaging. That's why it's but it can market its products up to 1 month in the shelf. But shelf meaning it still has to be refrigerated, no? There are no preservatives included in the product, so it's all natural. But because of the process that the milk underwent, the high-end machines, so it really lessens the bacterial load inside, so it extends the shelf life of the product. Because the usual one is for 7 days, no? The milk will already get spoiled. So for this one, it can it was extended to a month. So that's very significant extension. Aside from the raw milk processing, so they also have the yogurt processing. So all these steps are automated. And this gives me, let me go back to the concept of fresh, no, in relation to the multinational processors I mentioned earlier. So this fresh product or the labeling of fresh to the dairy products has been passed by as a House Bill number 4441 by Congressman Kimiko Wangko. This was way back like 15 years ago. And as a Senate Bill number 2980 by Senator Kiko Pangilinan. So this protects the local dairy farmers, only allowing the word fresh to be used for those that are perishable products, okay? And they have to be maintained in the cold chain. Okay, examples of which are the Batangas Dairy Cooperative products such as whole milk, and then they also have cheeses and some flavored milk, and also the one being produced by Rizal Dairy Farms, non-fresh milk products such as yogurt, sour cream, and soft cheeses, and the other products of the farm, Hacienda Makalawan, reconstituted milk tea, yogurt drink, especially live yogurt, and then Greek yogurt. They are also perishable and should be maintained in the cold chain. So, almost at the end of this lecture. So these are the important considerations in selecting a site for your dairy farm or dairy operations, making sure that you have a sure market for your products and to sell them at a reasonable price, because these milk products, these fresh ones, are highly perishable. So as soon as you process them, as soon as you make them, you have to sell them fast. So to sell them fast, it has to be on a competitive price. So it's good that you would have a good pasture so that at least the feeding is sustainable, and you would have less inputs so that you can compete and still stay in the business for a long time. Next is to have the support system coming from the government. And we know that it's almost non-existent. At least we have National Dairy Authority with their programs. They give the sex semen for free. They give the conventional semen for free. They give, or they let you borrow the container for the liquid nitrogen. So we call it the liquid nitrogen devoir, where you can put in your semen and they can be stored for a long while. They give seminars. They also help in the diagnostics or in the animal health, at least that. Okay. And then they can also help you or support you with your loans for your milk processing, like say a bulk tank or a homogenizer. So they can also help you with securing a loan for that. And aside from NDA, so you can also have government loans or support through loans from Land Bank and other government offices like the NEDA, no, when it comes to technology, etc. Okay, the production inputs, it was very difficult before because we didn't have online shops where we can easily get like, even the small spares parts. So it was challenging, but more that they are quite accessible right now, but just ensure that you do not really double the cost in your inputs so that you can remain in business for a long time, like I said before. And then for feeds, I also mentioned this, as much as possible, really do have a good pasture near your farm so that there will be less logistics costs, less fuel costs, and you can grease your animals there. So because these are ruminants, they really feed more on the really good forage so that you will have less supplements needed to get that optimal milk production. Okay, and to conclude, okay, the dairy industry is growing and now being noticed because with the beef cattle industry, it has been there for over 5 decades, and it's only in the 1980s that the dairy cattle industry started, but more organized in 1995. And still it's in a small like industry compared to the others. And we know that we are in a tropical country. That's why not many of the Filipinos are really good milk drinkers, but we are increasing in terms of consumption. And there's also a challenge not only in producing the fresh milk, but also producing quality milk fit for consumption of the humans or the general populace. So this is making sure, like as a veterinarian, this is where you get involved, that the milk going through the pipeline and being processed is not spoiled or not clotting, not mastitic, without contamination, without adulteration. Okay, and that is adhering to the Food Safety Act of 2013. And in terms of dairying itself, it is a way of life, no? It's a lifetime. Forever, for you to really embrace this kind of job, this kind of practice, you have to have passion. And in my life, I was able to find my passion because I was able to connect it with food safety. My interest is also on veterinary public health. So not only am I taking care of the animals, but also ensuring that they produce healthy milk for humans. Okay, and lastly, now I hope that you already know, you can distinguish what is real fresh milk with the not fresh milk, and these are the ones in the shelf that are not refrigerated. And so you can also this is to encourage you to support local products, and I've already given you a good list of local producers. So hopefully, we can support more of the dairy industry so that it will flourish. Okay, thank you very much, and that ends our lecture for today. See you next time.